got so much stuff on here. Okay, just give me a second. I'm going to set all this stuff up. This is wonderful. Okay. Okay, so here we are. I've been waiting all week for this. I thought that the weather might not hold out, but look at us. Look at us. We've got good weather today. Let me take this off. Okay, I'm just getting set up. I'm waiting for a couple of people to come in. I think this is going to be a very valuable workshop. I guess that's what you would call a workshop. Let me retouch myself. Okay. Good day today. Good day today. I thought the rain was going to set in early. I went out today and I was like, oh God, it's raining. It's raining. But let me go ahead and share this stuff out. Give me 1 second. I am having a ball here. I'm definitely having a ball here getting all of this stuff set up. Okay, we've got the computer up and running. And live stream. Okay, okay, so it is what it is. It is what it is. Let me see something here. I want to thank you guys for joining. Whether you're joining me now or later, that is always the thing. Everybody seems to join in later, but this is very important. This is part of what the Now movement is built on, is being there for people wherever they're at. Whether you're at home, whether you're going to make it here and sit down with us and talk, it doesn't really matter. The Now movement is about the support that you need wherever you may need it. And sometimes that might just be home. That might just be home. Let me share this out. Give me 1 second. Okay. And everything that we do is usually on Now TV. That's on the churchofrealtalk.com. The reason why we do that is because we're trying to build a network of support, a network where healing actually happens, not yesterday, not 2 weeks later, but now. We want it to happen now. Okay, let me just copy this and share this. You know what? I always say to myself, I should set this stuff earlier and understand. I used to use a different software to stream, and I said, "Oh, let me try YouTube." It's been a while since I've actually did anything on YouTube, and here we go on YouTube. And there was just so much stuff to set up. But we're going to get into it in just a second. I'm going to see if these people out there are waiting to come in, and then we're going to jump right in. Um, Let me just share this out. Just a simple join us. Hopefully everyone is having an amazing day. Thank you, Jada. Thank you, Sleepy Sundays, for joining me. I appreciate you. Um, yeah, we're going to cover a lot of stuff today. I think it's very important that we cover as much stuff as possible with this healing through peaceful choices. My name, if you don't know me, if you don't follow me, you just came along and said, hey, let me see what the heck this guy is talking about. My name is Minister Robinson, and I run the Church of Real Talk, and as well as the Now movement. The Now movement was birthed through pain. I still go through the freaking pain, but it was birthed through pain of realizing that I had given my all, and this has happened a couple of times. I shouldn't be proud to say that, but I had given my all to a person that near the end I found out, and it was made very clear to me that they never really cared. It was all a facade. It was all basically jokes on you. Um, and that hurts. That stings. And oftentimes we go through different stages. We go through the grief, the loss of someone that we thought we would spend the rest of our lives together, that we thought that, all of the future faking we actually brought into. We thought, hey, we're going to get a house out in the mountains and, or build a business or all that stuff, that you had sat down and planned out with a person that had no intentions whatsoever of living up to what they said. It was all basically just an illusion. And for survivors, the first thing that hits you is wave after wave after wave of grief, because it happened. You started to awaken. You saw them for what they truly were. but you still miss them because again it's not your fault. That's why I said you can still love someone because your capability to love, your capability to give of yourself, your capability to want to build something that is going to be stable has nothing to do with this other person whatsoever. It has nothing to do with them. It's you. These are your gifts. These are the things that are inside of you. And you shouldn't feel ashamed for being loved, for being the one that actually loves someone. You shouldn't feel ashamed or you shouldn't feel embarrassed that, hey, listen, I fell for this hook, line, and sinker. You shouldn't feel that way. And we do. We do. We feel the loss. But what happens is that there begins this battle inside of your mind, okay, because you know what this person is. You've seen through their mask. You've seen that they didn't have your best interest in mind. They didn't have your best intentions in mind. And you see this, and now your brain is going overboard. It's just going crazy because now you want revenge, you want payback, you want karma to step in and give you a front row seat. You want all of this stuff to happen, and you want it to happen now. Um, and then you start to realize that you've got to start healing yourself because now you're starting to see that not only did they attempt to break you, but you broke little pieces of yourself. And I hate to say this, a lot of people, when I've said this before, people look at me all strange, but it's true. You broke, you gave so much of yourself that little pieces of yourself started to dissolve. The things that you used to love, you gave up on. You, no matter what the reason was, whether the reason was to keep the peace, whether the reason was to, just stop walking on eggshells, if the reason was just to make the chaos subside so that you can get some sort of clarity, you gave that up. And now you're mad at yourself. One of the things that, and I want to go over 5 main points that survivors have to deal with in order for them to heal. One of those things is learning to trust themselves again. That's what that whole thing was that I said before. You were bamboozled. You were conned by a predator. You let someone into your life. As a full grown adult, you let someone into your life that meant you no good. And there comes a stage inside of you where you stop trusting yourself. You stop trusting your decisions. On top of that, you had all the gaslighting. You're sitting up there, you're talking to this person, you're saying, but this happened, and they're just rewriting reality on the run. And you're saying to yourself, hey, listen, you know, I don't know which way is up and I don't know which way is done. So you you no longer trust your decisions. Something before this whole ish show started, you were pretty confident within yourself. That's one of the things that I had to build up. I had to rebuild my confidence. And I'm not ashamed to say that because facing the things that's wrong with us is the only way we can fix them. If we continually try to hide them, if we continue to try to throw everything under the curb so we can't see it, or throw it in the closet under a bunch of stuff, it's still there. And in order for you to heal, you have to recognize these things within you. The funny thing about this whole thing, why I was thinking this morning to myself, I was like, I have to do this workshop. I'm looking outside, I'm like, the weather is not the best. Um, and I'm like, but I have to do it. And the thing is, the narcissists, they just go on with their life. See, all the damage that they cause, all the chaos that they cause, all the headaches that they cause, they just go ahead and live their life. And us, the survivors, we've got to fix everything back. We've got to go to therapy. We've got to go see mental health professionals. We have to sit through workshops like this. We have to give workshops like this while they just go on with their life. It's kind of unfair, but I've come to the grips with the fact that, karma is really a force in the universe, and karma always seems to, I'm watching it unfold now. Karma basically does its job. It does its job description, and it doesn't need to be told what it needs to do. It just goes ahead and does it. Hey, superhero edits, thank you for joining. I appreciate you. But after constant gaslighting, survivors often second guess every decision. Rebuilding internal trust means learning that intuition isn't wrong, it was manipulated. You know, many of us have been at that stage where we knew something was wrong. Whether their answers were off, where what they said made no sense, we could start to sense that, hey, listen, I know this happened. You're gaslighting me. You know, and the constant diminishing. We knew that something was wrong deep down inside, but you know what we did? We ignored it. And I'm going to be honest with you, we ignored it because one thing that I've learned from studying Carl Jung is that narcissists and empaths, they actually have this like two-star orbit. They just constantly circle around each other because it's just like any ecosystem in nature. You know, it's like trees need dirt and water. You know, narcissists need empaths. And in a strange way, empaths need narcissists. Because depending on how your life has turned out, the whole part of you being an empath is because you were hurt at some point in your life. You have a deep wound, a deep scar, as Carl Jung would say. You have a shadow. And you have constantly pushed that shadow to the bottom. You know, we try to overcompensate. We try to be liked by everyone. We try to, we're the person that gives until we break, until it breaks us. This is what empaths do because that scar, that wound, that shadow made them decide that, hey, listen, I don't want people to feel this hurt that's deep down inside of me. So I'm going to go out of my way to make sure that I can, by my actions or by my thoughts, help people get through this shadow. It's a cool thing to do. It really is. It's a great thing to do, to be the healer, to be the fixer. However, it's like with all things in nature, all things in this cosmos, there's something there that hunts that. There's something there that is a predator to that. Okay, and that would be the narcissist. See, the narcissist, as I've come to find out from studying Carl Jung, the narcissist has experienced deep hurt, deep scars, deep pain. However, they chose to allow their shadow to become darkness. And when they allowed their shadow to become darkness, they gave up all of the things that actually make us human, that make us human beings. And those things being empathy, the ability to care, the ability to love, the ability to take accountability, the ability to reflect. They've given that all up because they feel that if they can go through life breaking others, if they can hurt others, therefore they are stronger, they are more powerful, and that is how they sustain themselves. So like I said, narcissists and empaths, it's like a constant. There is nobody. And please chime in if I'm wrong because sometimes I am wrong. Let me get rid of this screen. Sometimes I am wrong. Okay, but let me know honestly if you consider yourself an empath. You know, the fixer, the person that goes out there that wants to help the world, that wants to make the world heal. You know, and the thing is, the crazy thing is, in the beginning of the relationship, even before the love bombing even starts, there's a system of data collection. Again, we're looking at a predator. Everything happens for a certain reason, for a certain payoff. And it's sad because you think that you're sharing with this person. You truly believe that you're vibing with this person. I'm sorry, I just got to get this in. You think that, hey, listen, you know, I'm going to tell you all about me. I'm going to tell you about me. I'm going to tell you the things that make me the person that I am today. And all they're doing is collecting data. They are analyzing. Every time you give them a piece of you, you show your vulnerability, which they don't have. Once you show that, you'll soon find that this is all the stuff they're going to use against you. You know, your fears, your regrets, the things that you missed out on, you know, missed opportunities, all that stuff is going to become fuel for them at a later date. And when you think about it, you ask yourself, what do I know about this person? See, again, that's where the shame creeps in, because you soon find out that you know nothing about them. Eh, you know that they were always the victim and the hero, nothing more, nothing less. There's no substance to the things that they've told you. All they've told you is, I was a victim in this situation, and this situation. That's all they told you. Or I was the hero in this situation, the admiration part. I was the hero in this situation. I was in the hero in this situation. Again, we have no substance. We have nothing. When you look back, you're like, wow, they didn't tell me anything. All they told me was this person made their life hell and how they made this person's life perfect. That's all you know. There's no in between. It's like a sandwich with nothing in between, just two pieces of bread. That's all you ever got from the narcissist. And then we feel ashamed about that, because as we go down memory lane and we think about the relationship in a whole, as we think about, you know, well, how did I get here? Again, you had the warning signs. Again, your nervous system was screaming at you, but you were in the middle of a love bomb, the love bombing stage. You know, and being the predators they are, they can actually sense when you're pulling back, when you're pulling away. And then it becomes more intense. Look at that relationship. As soon as you start to just go sit in the corner and say, something's not right here. I can't put my finger on it, but something's not right here. Then came more love, affection, gifts, whatever. Anything to keep you from looking behind their mask. They're saying to themselves, it's not time yet. I haven't done what I came here to do. So they shower you with affection. They shower you with praise. Gifts out the yin yang. You're like, wow, okay, well, maybe I was wrong. We don't trust ourselves anymore. At this stage, we don't trust ourselves. We tend to look at the abuser for clarity, and they expect this. I was being vetted for a podcast about 2 weeks ago. They wanted me to be on their podcast, and they told me straight up, they was like, hey, listen, this is business related, but I like what you're doing. If we can find a way to integrate what you do into my podcast that would be of value to my listeners, you know, I'm all ears. And, you know, since it's a business podcast, I said, well, I don't know if this fits your viewpoint, but I'm going to tell you something. You know, we look at business owners, we look at CEOs, we look at, you know, titans of business, and they are in relationships. They're in interpersonal romantic relationships. And if they're in an interpersonal romantic relationship with a narcissist, you know, that affects them. You know, especially if they're being heavily gaslit. So you have your business owner coming in, and there's a decision they need to make that's going to decide whether the business goes forward or if it stays still or if it folds. They've got to make this decision, and they've got hours to do it. But they've been gaslit so much that they don't trust their own intuition. The very same thing that helped them create that business, that very thing that helped them make that business a success is gone. It's gone because they've been constantly gaslit by their abuser. You know, and 9 times out of 10, since clarity seems to come from this person, you know, they go ask them. Remember, the narcissist's goal is not to see you rise. They're not there to see you shine. They're not there to see you reach the next level. They're there to destroy you, because that's how they survive. So do you think that CEO, that business owner, that titan of business is going to get good advice from their abuser that spends most of the day trying to gaslight them? See, these are the things that go under the radar when we talk about domestic narcissistic abuse. And I say domestic because that part is that we understand what narcissistic abuse is, but I don't think that many people understand the dynamics that are involved when it's an interpersonal relationship. You're in the same house with this person, you sleep in the same bed with this person, you're raising children with this person. And in the back of this person's head, they're just waiting for that moment. They are waiting. I watch nature stuff all the time, and it's crazy. Like you'll see things in nature like the anglerfish. It just like burrows under the sand. It's got this little tentacle thing that looks like a worm, and it just sticks it out and waves it around. And it waits until the perfect time to leap and snatch that fish. That's what it wants to do. It wants to leap up, grab that fish, and and in a sense, that's what the narcissist is doing. They're dangling something that you think is valuable. They're dangling something that you think is important. I was just on a thread on one of my social networks, and this person was like, I think my mate is a narcissist, but this is the best that I've ever had. What am I going to do? Well, this is what the narcissist does. Again, the anglerfish. This is what they do. If everything is over the top and it's made to mirror your desires and the things that you want, everything. Okay, because what does that do? If you're like this person that put up that question, you're like, hey, listen, it can't be all this bad because this happens, and this happens. So there's got to be an upside to this. Can I deal with someone abusing me emotionally every day just so that every night can be like this? This is what they do. This is what they spent their whole life doing, perfecting their craft, perfecting their con to be able to entrap people so that at the end of the relationship, by the time the discard happens, what has happened was they have fulfilled themselves. They have walked away feeling more powerful based on nothing else but the fact that, oops, I destroyed somebody. That's all it's based on. I have destroyed somebody. Therefore, I must be more powerful. Therefore, I must be smarter. Therefore, I must be greater. And oftentimes people don't see that. When everything is good, everything is gravy, you can put somebody in the bank vault, open up all the bags of money, and the first thing that comes to mind is, oh my goodness, I've got all of this money. This is all mine. This is all mine. Even though you hear the vault door closing. Even though you hear the vault door closing, you are so wrapped up in, I've got all of this money, all this gold. This is all mine. And then you hear that little wheel turning, and then you hear the lock click. Well, this is part of the subterfuge. This is part of the sleight of hand. That's what magicians call it. This is the sleight of hand. You think you're getting your greatest dream. You think you're getting your greatest desire. But what you're really doing is you're getting yourself a ticket into hell. That is exactly what you're doing. You're giving yourself a free ride into hell. And what happens with survivors, and I'm not going to harp on, point one, learning to trust themselves again, is you have to make an effort to make these decisions again. You did them before. Before this person came into your life, one of the things that I say to people constantly is, hey, I'm not trying to tell you to rebuild yourself. I'm just trying to tell you to get back to the day before you met this person. That's all I need you to do. I don't need you to do anything else. I need you to get back to the day before you met that person. You can figure out everything else from there. Because when you look at the chain of events, Just take it back. When did your life start falling apart? When did you feel like you was constantly surrounded by eggshells that you had to walk on every day? When did chaos become like one of the essential food groups in your life? When did that happen? I can guarantee you can bring it right back to the day you met this person. It's like just watching little pieces of your life being destroyed while they keep that sick, sordid grin on their face. So, what's the next stage that we go through? Detaching without guilt. That is one of the things that, yeah, we go through that. We, as survivors, you go through that because not only are they telling anybody that will listen, hey, listen, I did my all and they just left me high and dry, you're kind of feeling the same way. The programming that they left in your brain, you know that it was a issue. You know that it wasn't worth the oxygen that you was breathing in within their space. You knew that already. But deep down inside, again, we go back to the fact that you're an empath. You want to love. You think that the thing, and I use that word purposely, the thing that you loved, you're thinking that you can get them back to the stage where you thought that they loved you during the love bombing stage. They didn't love you then. I stay on social media a lot because I try to get the message out there to as many people as humanly possible. I really do. I want everybody to be able to see the warning signs. This is part of the reason why, I built the Now movement, why the churchofrealtalk.com has free audiobooks. And this is not a sales pitch. I'm just telling you what I've done. Okay? Because it's so easy. That's why I tell people when they speak to me about stuff like this, I tell them it's not your fault. It really isn't your fault. There was nothing you could have done about it. This person presented themselves to you as your soulmate. They mimicked everything about you. They gave you the mirror that you wanted to see. Again, that shadow. See, that thing that's broken inside you got super excited like a little kid during the holidays. It got super excited because it's like, this is what I've been looking for. Even though all you was looking at was the data you gave them, they're reflecting back to you and making you feel great. Looking like you're like Morpheus, I found the one. How can you blame yourself for that? How can you begin to say, this is my fault? This is something that I should have known better about it. You basically you're like Charlie and Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory. You got the golden ticket. You've got the person that, due to your shadow, you think you need. So, yeah, once you peek past the mask, or the mask cracks, or the mask sometimes shatters like it did in my case, when I saw all the venom, I saw all the anger, all the hate, all the envy, all the jealousy. And this actually took place in the course of 3 days. 3 days. I saw everything that I needed to see to make the decision like, I'm done. And I'm quite sure that this person went and told everyone, oh, they left me. Oh, this, that, and the other. Oh, this, that, and the other. Always the victim. But for like a week, I'm sitting up there saying, maybe, just maybe, maybe I should try a little bit harder. Maybe I should give him another chance. Maybe I should see if there's anything that I could have done better. Maybe. And then I just woke up out of the fog. I was like, no, they told me. They showed me by their very actions, that they didn't have my best interest in mind. Never did and never will. I mean, the venom that just came out their mouths for no reason. In fact, I put up a video about it when it first happened. I'm sitting up there listening to headphones because I noticed that within those 3 days, the main purpose was to try to trigger me, to get that chaos reaction, to get the reaction out of me. And then I'm like, oh, wow. So this is really what it's all about. This is really what this is all about. It's all about the reaction. It's all about you feeling superior. And you know what? I just put up a video about this earlier. It's like the dog whistle. It's like, and I noticed like all of the things that they were doing just just to trigger me, you know. And like the last day, their family was all around them, and I just, I went inside and I sat down, and they came in and very low tone, spent the whole day acting bat-ish crazy at the top of their voice to get a rise out of me, but very quietly said the most hurtful thing ever. I just put my headphones in and went back to what I was doing. See, they were mad because they could no longer get the reaction out of me. And it still doesn't stop to this day. It still doesn't stop to this day. It's like, I'm sure the stories that they're telling, they're leaving out all of those parts. They're leaving out all of those parts because, see, it doesn't serve them. It doesn't make them the victim or the hero. And I've come to find in my life, because flying monkeys will come into play while you're trying to detach, and they'll send them out sometimes. Hey, they're just going through a rough patch in their life. Oh, they're under a lot of stress. I don't think that that's what they meant to do or say. I don't think that. Little do they know, is like, no, I'm quite sure they meant what they said because they've been saying it for months. Anything that they felt would be a dart in my back that would hurt me, that would cripple me, that would stop me from doing whatever it was that I was doing, that's what we shot for. That was the ammunition that we utilized as much as humanly possible. So yeah, the flying monkeys will come around, but I've come to realize it's like, it doesn't matter. See, my peace is more important. The only thing I worry about in this life is, in this order, my daughters, well, all of my children, but my daughters because they're young. Okay, I worry about the mission. The mission is to, well, this month is to dismantle the mask, to let everybody see exactly what these people are. And I did this. I use the DMS-5. I use what clinicians use. I use what psychiatrists use. I use what therapists use to define narcissists. So I broke that down. I need to unravel the mask. So it's my daughters, the mission, and the movement, the Now movement. And here's the deal. I thought this room would be packed even for the weather. At this stage, it doesn't matter. I'm showing up here. I'm showing up now. I am going to speak my truth in the hopes that others have that same ability to speak their truth. Because what happens is all of this just disappears. It's like smoke and mirrors. The narcissists just, they smear victims, they go about their business, they go find another victim, and that is the cycle. That is the cycle. I look at myself now and I said, oh, wow, I'm in the same position as the last one. The last one could look at their position now and say, oh my God, look, I'm in the same position as the last one was. It's a cycle. It's something that they can't break. It's something that they must do because they cannot deal with the darkness. They cannot deal with the emptiness that is inside of them. They can't. And when you speak your truth, the strangest thing is, while they're smearing your name to anybody that will listen, once you begin to speak your truth, to say, hey, listen, I'm not going to, contest what you're saying. I'm just going to tell the truth. Then rage, anger, weaponization, oh my God, how dare you talk about, well, you just spent the last, I don't know how long talking about me, and that was fine. That was fine. And you were telling lies. On the other hand, I'm telling truth with receipts. So it's like, to me, it doesn't matter because I have detached. I used to have this thing. I worked management for years and years and years. And I had this thing because, you always have those employees that just don't want to do their job. They don't want to do their job. And I like to think of myself as the friendly manager. I got to get the job done, okay? And if you're under me, you've got to do your part. For the most part, I was friendly. But you always have those employees that take that the wrong way. They're like, oh, I'm going to run over this guy. I'm going to do what the hell I want. I'm going to come in late every day if I want to. I'm going to do this. I'm numbers. I ain't worried about that. I'm just here to get a free paycheck. And I would pull their coat to it, and the first time it would always be a verbal warning. Like, yo, listen, this is not personal. This is about the job. This is about money. Okay? So you're making your money. Company signs off a check for you every week, just like they sign off a check for me. Okay? I want to keep my check. So if you don't do what it is that you're supposed to do, it makes it harder for me to justify me getting my check. Okay? And I'm figuring you like your check too. Okay, so with that being said, let's get on the ball. Let's get it done. There's a verbal warning. Next time it'll be a written warning, and I never do 3. So 2, you're going. Okay, that's just the way that I looked at it, because the way I trained my teams was I told you all the rules. I told you what was expected of you. If you come in and you clock in, then you expect to get paid for that time. I expect you to do what you're supposed to do. So I'd always have those what I used to call bad seeds, and they would hate me. They would hate me because they misjudged the person that I was. And I'm like, man, I'm about to lose my job because of him. No, you're not losing your job because of me. You're losing your job because of you. Because you refuse to do what you're supposed to do. So I used to have this running joke. I was like, there must be a nightclub in New York City called Lou's, where people just go there and just discuss how much they hate me. You know, and I hope that all of my narcissistic abusers are there, because every time that I found myself in a narcissistic relationship, I have found that, and the first 2 times I didn't have a name for it. I didn't know what it was. I really didn't. I just knew something was wrong. Something would happen. I'd be like, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm done. You know, and I'm talking about one went for decades, went for 2 decades. Okay, and I now have a name for it, but I think all of them are sitting in that bar, having drinks, discussing why they hate me, because I make it my intention to rebuild myself. And this is not just to talk about me. I'm going to get back to the workshop, but I have found, and I hope that you find this within yourself. There was something great in you before you actually ran into this narcissist. There really was something great in you. You had purpose. You had abilities. You had things that you could do. You had things that, hell, people was probably jealous of you about. Um, and the narcissist, that's one of the first things they start stripping away from you. Okay, because your brightness glares into that empty space. They're jealous, envious people. I mean, I know out of my abusers, I think, yeah, all 3 of them, they would talk about their family members like they were dogs. You know, anytime a family member would achieve something, anytime a family member would, do something great, I'm the type of person like, hey, listen. In fact, I know one of my abusers, one of their family members can't stand me. But they did something and I thought it was amazing. And I'm going to give credit where credit is due. They was like, thank you. And I was like, no, this is your talent. It's not mine. I appreciate it. But they want to take anything from anyone. No one, that's part of the criterion, grandiosity. Well, not grandiosity. I guess it would be living larger than life. They want to be admired. And if anybody else is being admired, if anybody's paying attention to anyone else, if anybody is doing something, that would be considered amazing, it pisses them off. Then you have to hear the stories about, oh, they don't deserve that, and they just do this because it's easy, and it's like, after a while, you just look at that person, you're like, why don't you just do something? See, that's the thing. That's another criterion, the sense of entitlement, the sense of I want to be famous. I want to be a rapper. A narcissist will feel that I'm going to write this one rhyme and my music is going to be published overnight and I'm going to be amazing. And people are going to come to my concerts. I'm going to throw my first concert within a month of releasing my single, and everybody's going to love me. But I just have to write the rhyme. They're never going to sit down and write the rhyme. They're not. They feel entitled. They feel that they should have this and nobody else should. Nobody else deserves anything but them. I talk a lot about this on the breakdown, which is really right after this. I talk a lot about this on the breakdown. This whole I love Lucy way of looking at life, and that's what made the show so funny is because Lucille Ball would have these crazy freaking ideas. It was literally, I just think that she was naive. I don't think that she was a narcissist, but Ricky I mean, he must have kept like big bottles, like, Costco sized bottles of Excedrin in his medicine cabinet because this chick, she would come up with stuff. And even you watching the show be like, that's never going to work, you know. But one thing that I can give her is her and Ethel, they would try to come together and would try to put in the work. It might be a bat crazy idea, but at least they would try to put in the work. Narcissists don't put in the work. They feel that they're entitled. They feel that, hey, listen, it's like I used to tell my sons, the path of least resistance, usually there's nothing there at the end. There isn't, and I noticed this from a couple of my narcissist demon exes that, you know, always the path of least resistance. Even though I would tell them, I would be like, you might want to put your back into it, especially if it's your idea. I'm a firm believer in that. It's my idea. I'm going to put my back into it. And being an empath, you want to help. And I think that was the first boundary I set. And the last relationship was I can't help you anymore because you're not doing it for yourself. And when I need help, there's been times where when I ran certain projects and I'm like bedridden, not only did they not care, but they just refused to help. And I'm like, well, I've been doing this for a year. You think that you want to learn what it is that I do? Hell's to the no. Hell's to no, because they feel that they're entitled. If it's your skill set, it's their skill set. And I get that in relationships and certain, in relationships that both people love and care about each other, that whole power couple concept is really a cool thing. I think it's great when a couple can come together, just like, Obama and his wife, they wanted to make something happen, so they made it happen. But it wasn't, leeching blood. It wasn't Obama doing all the work. It wasn't Obama doing all the work without any support. With the narcissist, you're not going to get any support and they're not going to help you do the work. But again, we go back to the front of the ranch with Lucille Ball. If they have an idea, they expect you to drop your heart into it. And they'll give it up whenever they notice that the work is just getting too hard. I didn't sign up for this. I would simple things that just took a little bit of, you know what, I'm going to carry some of these bricks. I'm going to, push the wheelbarrow. I'm going to mix the cement. I'm going to make this work because this is my idea. Simple stuff. Wouldn't do it. Would spend more time looking for people they could hire to do it. And I get that concept as a business leader, as a movement leader. I get it now with just the Now movement. I can't do all this on my own. So I had to bring in other people. Okay, but I carried all the bricks. I paved the driveway for this. I put in the work. But that's what I'm saying. When you look at narcissists, these things are not important to them. What's important to them is that they are admired. Thank you so much. Praise the Lord. You're right. You're right, superhero edits. You are right. you know. So when you look at all these things, you have to detach without guilt. And I'm going to tell you something. After you saw their mask crack, after you saw their mask fall, that had to be the most horrific day of your life. I know for me it was. I was like, oh my God. I just didn't know what to do with myself. I was like, there's a person that would swear in a stack of Bibles that they love me. Within 2 days, they forgot I existed. I have not gotten the phone. I have health issues. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Because I've no longer served my purpose. And then on top of that, I done saw through the mask. So therefore, I'm a threat. So anybody that considers me their op, or the opposing team, it makes it easy for me to detach. And plus, always remember, this is what I said, through peaceful choices, you don't have to get them back. You know who they are, they know who they are. Leave it at that. Go work on you. You've got to go work on you. So, another thing that survivors actually struggle with, that they actually deal with, that they actually have to fight through once they detach is reclaiming their identity. Raise your hand if you have found out that you kind of lost like the core sense of yourself. I talked about this the other day. Usually the discard will start happening when the narcissist sees that you have picked up certain attributes that they carry. All the things that they did that actually showed to them that he's acting just like me. Or she's acting just like me. That signals the discard. That tells them, I've won. Hey, listen, my work is done here. Look at them. They're just like me. They are just like me. Another empath, broken. They do this on purpose. It's strategic. It's meant to diminish all the things that, believe it or not, in their eyes made you a worthy target. When you think about it. See, all the things that you had going on when you met them, all the things that made you special, your identity, the core being of yourself, that's what they were attracted to. That is what they were attracted to. And after they got the data, after the love bombing stage, they tried to incorporate pieces of you into themselves. But here's the thing. The things that shaped you, it's a long freaking struggle, wasn't it? The things that made you you, there were certain hurts, there were certain heartbreaks, there were certain happy times, there were certain things that you overcame, there were certain struggles that you got through that made you into the person that you are. So basically, that's not something that you can reach in your pocket and say, here's the blueprint to me. You can't do that. And the narcissist feels that if they stay in close proximity to you, if they stay close enough to study you, if you continually give them the data that they need, they can take those parts. Think about it. You ever start a project or start something or say this is your dream, and then all of a sudden, that's their dream too. And I'm going to tell you, at first, in the very beginning, you're kind of flattered. You feel good. You're like, look at them trying to be just like me. But see, what happens is when they figure out that they can't be like you for all the reasons that I said before, they get angry. Because what you're doing is you're forcing them to look inside of themselves. They have to say to themselves, I don't have what this person has. I can't do what this person does. I can't think like this person does. That upsets the hell out of them. It really does. And what they tend to do is, you'll see, this is when the dynamic of the relationship will start to switch. They will find out quickly that, no, that's not true. Anything you can do, I can do better. No, that's not true. I've spent years doing this. I've given up a lot of my personal time to do this. Now, anybody can learn anything, but we go back to the front of the ranch. The narcissist isn't going to put in the work. Yes, anybody can learn how to do anything. There's an old saying that if you do enough research and you go to all the libraries and now we have ChatGPT, you could build a nuclear bomb. You really could. If you're willing to put in the work. If you're willing to sit down and actually learn it, you could do that. Please don't do that. But anything is possible. But that's the missing ingredient. That sense of part of the DSM-5 is the sense of entitlement. They feel that, hey, listen, you gave me the information I needed. I see what you do. I watch what you do. I should be able to do it because I'm better than you. That's the grandiosity. I'm better than you. Well, yeah, I don't care if you spent 10 years learning that. That don't matter. I'm going to pick it up in one day because I'm better than you. And then they get very, very angry because that forces them to look at themselves and say to themselves, I don't have it in me. I can't do what they do. Does that mean that they're better than me? No, that can't be. So when it hits that stage in their mind, then they punish you. Then they start diminishing everything that you do. They devalue everything that you do because they need you to stop doing it because they can't do it. They can't figure out how to make it happen. It's not working for them. What do you mean it's not working for me? What? Are you trying to tell me that this person that I say that I love every day is better than me in something? That is the dilemma. And after months, years, decades of walking on eggshells, of diminishing yourself, again, like I said, we do this ourselves, because we don't want the arguments. We don't want the nasty action words coming out of their mouth. We don't want the nasty nouns. We don't want we don't want none of that. So we want peace. We want quiet. We want just some stability in our lives. So what we do is we learn very quickly that, hey, by me doing this, hey, if I'm going to do it, I can't talk about it. And if I talk about it, I can't make it seem like I'm proud about it. And if I'm proud about it, I better just go someplace and sit down. Because you can see it brewing on their face. There's going to be a snide comment. There's going to be a dart thrown because they can't deal with the fact. Like I said, at least two of them constantly. Family does something, family member does, oh, they don't deserve that. They don't do this. They don't do that. It's like, I have strained relationships with people in my family. I'll admit it every day. They know it. They know it. Some of them I don't talk to unless it's something that's really an emergency. And that's cool. That's how I choose to live my life, But let me find out that one of those family members did something great. Oh, I'm calling them up to congratulate them. Oh my God, I just saw this. I just saw this. I didn't even know you was doing that. Oh, that is wonderful. Congratulations. I'm going back to not talking to you, but I just want to call you up and say congratulations. Or if they're close by, hey, I just want to knock on the door. Congratulations. I am so freaking proud of you. You did something amazing. And now I'm going back to not talking to you. Not narcissists. They're going to badmouth any accomplishment that does not shine light on them. If the spotlight is not on them, they want nothing to do with it, and they're going to badmouth the person. It's strange because in both relationships, I noticed that the flying monkeys, I'm like, y'all really don't realize this? Y'all really have no clue about this. You don't know the stuff because you guys did something, okay, that they can't do, that she ran y'all through the ringer. But, hey, it's not my problem. It's not my business. Now you out there smearing my name. So, hey, listen, have at it. Karmism, MFer. Okay? And I say that in the nicest way possible. So what's another thing? Is grieving the illusion. We grieve the illusion. Okay? Again, this is all a facade. This is all false. The narcissist, let me just put this straight to you so that you understand you. So I'm not sugarcoating it. I'm not making it seem like something that it isn't. Okay? I don't want to be that guy. Okay? The narcissist never loved you. I don't care how many times a day they said it. I don't care if they wrote it on holiday cards. I don't care if they wrote it on Valentine's Day cards. They didn't love you. You were a means to an end. They needed to fill the void. Now, did they have fun when they was with you? Yeah, as long as the spotlight was on them. Look back. If you don't believe me, you look back. I wasn't there. I was not there. Okay? So I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know. I don't know. But I can guarantee you that if you look back, that the only times that you had fun times, the only times that it was peaceful, the only times that, hey, you felt wanted was when they were being admired, they were put on a pedestal, you were doing the work to make their dreams come true, and you just didn't set boundaries or speak your feelings. Everything was fine. I can guarantee it. I don't even have to be there. It was all an illusion. It's just like that song. It was that illusion. It's like, I want to see that movie, Now You See Me. They're coming out. I think they just released it. I think I'm going tomorrow. You know, I want to see that movie, Now You See Me, because it kind of outlines it. It's all sleight of hand. They mirror what they think you need. And that makes you feel like you found, like I said, like Morpheus, you run around telling everybody on Nebuchadnezzar, hey, I found the one. This is the one. This is the one that I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. This is the one I'm going to make a future with. Ain't that right, baby? Yeah, we're going to have a great future. Yeah, we're going to have a really great future. That's what it turns out to be. That's what you've been dealing with. Why do you think it was so easy for them to just pick up another relationship? Days, weeks after leaving you. So after years and years and years, and nobody around them sees this, okay? Most people don't understand that that person has probably been there a little bit longer than you think. Every argument where they had to storm out, every time they had to go someplace for hours, every time that you tried to call them and all of a sudden their phone wasn't working, they were getting the admiration that they needed from the new supply. So nobody actually looks at that. Nobody says, well, that was kind of quick. You spent all this time with them and y'all had kids and y'all brought a house together and all of this, and it hasn't even been 3 weeks and you in a new relationship? Nobody looks at that because not only you've been part of the smear campaign, so it's been your fault from the beginning. They've been planting those seeds of doubt in people's heads months before it ended, because they sense that you're seeing through their mask. So they're doubling down on their best. They're like, hey, let me just make people think this person is crazy so I can say I did everything that I could and there was just nothing. And you see how they left me? And oh my God. That's what they do. That's what they do. Again, don't have to be there, but if you're a flying monkey, I bet you that's the story you heard. This is why the Now movement has to exist. Because these things, as I'm breaking them down, they seem so simple. They seem so easy. But at the same time, they could actually fly right under the radar. Most people don't see it, and that's why people still setting up channels like mine and starting movements like mine and putting up videos like mine. This is the reason why. Because it just seems impossible, because we judge human beings based on how we see ourselves and how we see other good human beings. We judge that and say, nobody would do that. Why would somebody do that? Why would somebody be that evil? Perfect word, by the way. Why? Why would they do that? Why would somebody say they love a person and want to see the worst for them? That doesn't make sense to me. So we start to grieve, and plus we hear that gobbledygook from everybody that we try to share our truth with. We hear that. Oh, I don't think nobody would do that. Who would do that? That's just plain evil. I don't think they're evil. I think they're a good person for the most part. Maybe y'all was just having problems. No, there's a freaking demon. I've been sleeping in a bed with a demon. Okay, and there was nobody that was coming to give me an exorcism. So now I'm sharing my truth with you, and you're diminishing it. Now I got to go see a therapist. So that's why the now movement exists. Not some people aren't ready for therapy. They're not. They're just trying to digest just to get a little bite of what's going on. Just to get figure out like, am I crazy or am I crazy? You know, so the relationship itself was built on fantasy. Who they thought the person was, letting go of the illusion hurts more than losing the actual relationship. And that's part of the trauma bond. And again, that's something these people are nefarious. But this is something that they put into place. The trauma bond is like essentially their back door. Your way out is like picking up the phone to the matrix. It's like they set this up so that when they get tired of, I guess, destroying somebody else, they'll kind of, you know, reach back out to you just to see if they still got control, just to see if they can make you jump through hoops again, just to see if they can bring more chaos into your life. So that's what the trauma bond essentially is. It's you, doubting, hey, listen, I know what I saw. I know what the problem is. I know what's going on, but I missed them. What do you really miss? And I make a lot of videos about this. When you break it down, what do you really miss? And this is a question that only you can answer. I can't answer it for you. But what do you really miss? I can't think of, and when I was going through my healing process, I had to ask myself that very same question. What are you missing? I miss my daughters. That's it. There is no part of that relationship that I can honestly say, take out a piece of paper and a pen and say, I miss. I would be stuck there for days because there's nothing that I miss. I have. This is why healing is so important, because you start to realize that what you really miss is peace, not from them. What you really miss is peace. You know, I tried, I really tried to come up with, I like to think that it's the empath in me. I like to think that every human being has potential, you know. And then I had to come to realization is some people are just pieces of crap. I have a stronger word that I usually use, but this is like my first time in a long time doing YouTube Live, so I don't want to mess that up. But yeah, it's all an illusion. And I challenge you to do that. Write down 10, no, 5, 3 things that you really miss about the narcissist, about your abuser. What happened was chaos became normal, because after the chaos came the love bombing, because they're not going to take accountability, but mask is cracking just a little bit more. So they've got to soothe your soul a little bit. So here comes a little bit of love bombing. You're like, okay, yeah, whatever. Hey, love bomb, love bomb. But what you don't realize is that you are feeding back into the illusion that you have met the perfect person, that you have met the soulmate that you've been seeking for most of your life. And that's when it gets scary. That's when the pain really kicks in, because once you sit down and you try to write those 3 things down and you come up blank, that hurts. That hurts. And then you compound the time that you spent with this person. Now it hurts even more. So what happens next is you need to start to learn how to rebuild emotional safety. Your nervous system has been screaming at you since, like, I'm going to say day 2 of this relationship, kind of telling you, hey, this doesn't feel right. This feels kind of off. I don't think that's the correct response. And, your nervous system is kind of telling you, but here you go. Okay. Oh, it's nighttime. Time to love bomb. That's what you're doing. Oh, this is a shiny new relationship. I got to give it a chance. I got to see where it's going. I can't. One of the things that I used to always say is nobody, and this was even before I realized that the person I was involved with was a narcissist. This is just something that I've picked up through the years through life is nobody goes into a relationship says I love you with an expiration date attached to that. You know, I love you used before blank blank blank. It doesn't happen for most adults, most real adults, most adults that have a moral compass. You don't even have to be an empath, to understand that concept. If you take the time to say, you know what, listen, we've been together for X amount of time, and I'm feeling you, you feeling me, you know. But come here, come here, come here. I love you. I love you. You know what I'm saying? And listen, next week I'm gonna come back. Let's get married. No, I'm just playing. Don't do that. But that's how it played out. That's how it played out, and you didn't have enough information. It's like we tell our teenage children, be aware of what you're doing. You this is a huge leap into responsibility. At least understand the reasoning behind why you're doing it. You know, and as adults, we seem to forget that little bit of advice. And our nervous system has been screaming at us the whole time, like, do not tell them you want to marry them. It's like, oh man, you told them you want to marry them. Don't you tell them that no joint bank accounts, please. This is your nervous system. No, don't buy a house with them. Don't do that. This is your nervous system. And we ignore it all the way until the mask drops. See, we get to glimpse behind the mask every once in a while. It slips because they become so comfortable with you. They've been so comfortable with the abuse. And since, the grandiosity, they think they're smarter than you. They really think that they're pulling the wool over your eyes. But every once in a while, you'll react a certain way and they'll see that, huh? What you say? Are you seeing behind my mask? And then they'll rage out. And usually for most people, that your nervous system is just like going like this. Didn't I tell you? Didn't I tell you something was wrong with them? Now look at you. Now look at you. My previous abuser had no clue. I'm going to tell you how stupid I was. Okay, I had a way out the relationship 6 months before I got out. I had a written in stone way out. Nervous system sitting up there every day. I'm just I gave you enough data already. I'm sitting there on the computer doing my thing. I'm like, I am free. I am freaking free. You know, and I'm sitting up there, and I think they sensed it because rage out after rage out for no reason. I could just be sitting minding my business. Rage. Rage. Because they knew I was figuring it out. They didn't know about the plan. The plan was there. I kept that locked up. Okay, because I couldn't let anybody get in the way of that plan. But what happened was I didn't listen to my nervous system. And there were a few times where the love bombing came along. Yeah, it's not too bad. And every once in a while, they would say things that didn't seem too off. I'm like, maybe it's just the stress of everything. Maybe it's the stress. There was a lot of stress in the household and everything else. But then, nervous system still screaming at me, still upset at me. Then I get even more information. I'm working with a veterans group, and then they say, hey, listen, I don't know if you know this, but this transaction, this transpired. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. You've got to figure this out. You've got to make a hard decision right now. And when I got the news, I was like, no, that can't be true. They was like, no, it is true. It is true. And I was like, okay, cool. And I looked up and they were across and they were looking directly at me. And I think they knew. They knew that I knew. Went downhill from there. Went completely downhill from there. There was one time that my nervous system was so upset at me that I broke out. You would think that I was playing baseball and had a catcher's mitt that had poison ivy on it. Okay, my hands were burning. There was nothing I can do to stop it. Because that was my nervous system. It was like, dude, we've been trying to warn you this whole time. Maybe if we make your hands feel like they're on fire, maybe you'll listen. And believe it or not, it worked. Because I listened and I called back the person and I'm like, yep, good, let's go. Let's move forward with this. And the rage, like I said, it went on until the next day. It's going on now. It's going on right at this minute. But that's why you have to heal yourself because I really don't care. You can rage out all you want. I really don't care. I can give two pieces of, that stuff. Because healing is more important to me. Healing not only for myself, but for my daughters. I have grown sons. They out there, they doing their own thing. I am so proud of them. And I spoke to my son, well, they're twins, but I spoke to the older one, and he was ready to come out. I was like, no, you go ahead with your life. I got this. I can handle this. And the way that I handled it was I sought peace within myself. And the most important thing was I confronted the shadow. I had to. I really, really had to confront that shadow. I had to find that thing that was broken inside of me that I refused to look at. And, there were different points in my life, which I shared with the narcissist. I don't know why. I just basically gave him the checkoff sheet that, oh, yeah, you are an empath. Oh, yeah. You're nice and that happened to you? I shared that with them. I mean, life was, when I look back, I had some great experiences. I met some great people. But I always try to push that thing down, that shadow thing, that thing that hurt me really bad. And I had to deal with it. Because while I was studying Carl Jung, I'm sitting just saying to myself, I'm like, what is this guy in the shadow stuff talking about? I don't got no shadow. And then I had to realize, I was like, I do. I do. All that stuff that happened to me at a young age shaped me to where I wanted to be the super friendly person. I wanted to be the person that everybody liked. I wanted to be super popular. I always wanted to help people. Sometimes, it got to the point where in my life, I'd hear somebody going through something. I'm like, yeah, I don't mean to air hustle, but I might have a piece of advice that might help. I'm not in your business. I've met business partners doing that. Just talking about stuff. They might have something, a computer gadget in their hand. I'm like, oh, yeah, you got that? That's nice. I heard about that. They asked me for information. I told them information. First time I set up a music studio was for this person. So I went out of my way to be accommodating yet helpful. And that was because I was hiding the shadow. And again, we have to go all the way back to the front of the ranch. Again, part of, you know, the narcissist having kind of a similar life that you've had, the heartache, the cruelty and all of this stuff, whereas they flip the script, they, how would I put this? Not only do they not have the potential to heal, but when they see these things in you, they want to cite, this is truly the energy vampire. So if you wanted to paint a picture or describe, energy vampire to anyone, that would be a narcissist. All they do is siphon out the good. And they give nothing back. Return on investment. I remember the last person I was involved with, they used to hate that word, that phrase, return on investment. Every time I would say a relationship shouldn't be based on return on investment, that's a business concept. And I'm like, no, it's a life concept. Little did I know that at the end, I would have to say to myself, I got no return on investment. I got nothing. I got nothing. I got to build the now movement. That was just the universe guiding me. It's been crazy. Um, yeah, I kind of lost thought here for a second because I'm thinking about those things. Like I said, I confront my shadow. When it raises its head, I don't hide it anymore. I don't, and I suggest that you do the same thing. Carl Jung was actually onto something because it makes the process of healing easier. You know, and that's what I was getting to before I lost train of thought is it's almost the reason why if you feel that you've been like I made the tally 3 for me. If you feel that you keep on finding yourself in these relationships, with people that don't care about you, that just want to destroy you, that just want to make your life miserable so that it can feel better. The reason why this is happening, as far as Carl was concerned, look at me calling him Carl like we cool and whatnot, but Carl Jung was saying was because we sign an unspoken contract. We see dark things in the narcissist that we can't hold within us. We kind of know on a subconscious level that this is a narcissist. And we see these things that we can't embody in ourselves. The ability to cut people off, the cruelty, the, hey, I don't want to be bothered. Empaths can't do that. It's like, okay. I went through this the other day. I'm like doing a vet workshop and I was done. I was trying to get something done before I headed out. And they see me focused on the computer, and it's like everybody's come by asking me a question, asking me a question, asking me a question. And I'm like, I'm saying in the back of my head, I'm like, I gave y'all a whole hour and 15 minutes. Where were these questions then? Now you see me busy, you know? And on top of that, I'm dealing with the fact of, my daughters are being kept away from me. I have to be honest about that, and I have to share that, because it's done intentionally, because there's nothing else to weaponize against me. Nothing. So, I'm dealing with that heaviness on my head, but true to form as your textbook empath, I'm like, all right, let me see what you're dealing with. All right, let me see. They're asking me stuff on their phone, stuff like that. Okay, let me see this. Let me see this. Let me see this. I helped them all. Everybody said thank you. One guy actually brought me a cup of coffee because I drink coffee all day. And I packed up my stuff and I said, let me just go ahead and, sit down and reflect. And I reflected and I said, this is part of the reason why I think I was somewhat attracted to the narcissist, because the ability to say, no, I'm not going to help you. No, go ask somebody else. Those things, when you look at the flip side of the coin, sometimes those things seem amazing that people can do it, especially if you're an empath. It's like, I find it hard to turn people away if they're asking for legitimate help. I find it hard. Not the narcissists, they do that. They could be asleep. No, 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 get out my face. No, no, I don't care if you're bleeding, get out my face. And we signed this contract where we're basically saying, if you can show me how to be somewhat like this, I'll allow you to do what you would normally do, which is basically abuse me and make my life a living hell. And that's why my shadow pops up, I stop whatever I'm doing and we just have a little powwow. I'm like, yeah, I know that hurt, but we're here now, bro. But this is where we at. I know this person did this to me. I know this. This has nothing to do with what's going on right here. I actually have these conversations. I know somebody's going to say I'm crazy, but it's true. It's true. You have to address what's inside you. Stop worrying about addressing the narcissist. Stop worrying about addressing their bad behavior. Stop addressing the fact that they lied to you and said that they love you. Leave all of that alone, because at the end of the day, that is within them. That's something that they're not going to deal with, but they have to deal with. Okay? You worry about healing. You worry about getting to the next level of your existence. You worry about finding someone that when they say they love you, they really do love you. That's where your focus should be. We have to get out of this whole revenge thing. We got to stop talking about the dark empaths and the super empaths and this person and that person. I just put up a video yesterday about this. It's like even Iron Man took off his armor every once in a while. You'll find yourself becoming so hard that you miss all the good things, the things that you used to enjoy in your life. You will find that they will just go right by you because you're so busy trying to right this universal wrong that was done to you. Let karma do her job. The chick has been awesome up to this date. She really has. I doubt if karma gets a write up for not doing her job. I have had so many doors open once I stopped, and Carl Jung said this. Synchronicities happen once you align yourself. So I dealt with the shadow. I had these long drawn out conversations with the shadow. Me and the shadow are kind of cool right now, and doors are starting to open. Doors that are opening towards the movement, doors that are opening as far as the resolution for me and my daughters, doors that are opening for me to get to the next level. Not doors that I'm seeking out, not doors that I'm open. Sometimes I'm going to tell you something. I was speaking to this Islamic brother, and it was after I did my workshop. He came to do his workshop, and we're talking, and I'm saying to myself, I'm like, because we've spoken before, so I'm like, listen, I believe in the universe. I respect what you believe in. My thing is, whatever keeps people positive, I'm good with. So we have these conversations, and as I'm opening the door to go in and greet him and everything, I'm like, I wonder if he can tell me about jinns. I always wanted to understand that a deep breakdown of jinns. I sit down, greets him. He gives me a Quran and some other literature to read. He's like, you might find some knowledge in here. Because I told him that's why I come here for, to find knowledge. I sit down. Guess what we're talking about? The jinns. The demons. Well, they're not really demons, but shaitan. We talked about that. And I'm sitting there and I'm saying to myself, I'm like, this is what I wanted to talk about. So, if you are healing, your goal should always be peace. Peace for yourself. Even if you're at that stage where you still believe in illusion, where you still have that little ache in your heart where you think you still love them, that's cool. But you have to love yourself. Everything takes place when you start loving yourself. When you start dealing with that shadow, when you start dealing with that thing inside of you, that's when it begins. The more you push the shadow back, it's not very helpful. The more that you decide that, hey, let me give this one more try, you're buying that ticket back to hell again. It's like getting on a roller coaster that almost made you throw up, and then you're like running to get back on the line. That's what you're doing with the narcissist, except it's not as fun. Okay? I want to do more of these. In fact, if you go into the details, you will find I use AI for a lot of stuff. I love AI. And I came up with a set of prompts for healing. I do everything to help people heal, to help myself heal too. And so I went ahead, saw it. I was like, this is positive. And the empath in me says, hey, listen, if this could help me, this could help somebody else. I know this can help somebody else. So I said, okay, let me turn this into a book. And it's got, personal stories and how to use AI to overcome it. Of course, I put in the beginning, this is not a psychiatrist, therapist. If you need medical advice, go get it. This is not for medical or legal advice. This is just something to, hey, if nothing else is working, why not give it a try? Nothing wrong with that, right? So I wrote the book. It's on Amazon, and I'm not trying to sell books. So if you go to thechurchofrealtalk.com and go to the Healing Library, you can listen to the audiobook for free. Just pause the spots where it tells you to write down the prompts and stuff like that. But this is what I live to do. I'm exhausted. I'm beat. It's been a heavy week. I've had to deal with the grief of missing my daughters. And knowing deep down inside they're being weaponized. In fact, you know what? We used to do, because I have to meet with them via Zoom, we used to sit down and we used to do this YouTube channel that shows people how to draw, and it's based on kids, and until all of a sudden they can't have paper or crayons anymore. But hey, that's another story. That's for another live. But this is I can't draw to save my life. But we would sit down and it would be so much fun. And when I was packing up my gear, this is the ice cream cat that we drew. When I was packing up my gear, I came across this, and you tell me they laughed at this. This is supposed to be some kind of crazy shark, but even the 3-year-old used to get involved with it. And I found it. I was like, this is above cruelty. This is just weaponization. It's like we're talking about a 3, 5, and a 7-year-old. If they're having fun, they're having fun with their father. It's not like it's something that's hurting anybody. In fact, it's helping them. And that to this day it weighs on me somewhat. But me and my shadow, we get to talking, and we say we can't let this bring us down. We can't let somebody else's you know dysfunction stop what we're trying to do here. And at the end of the day, once you find peace, your daughters will see that. They're not going to be 3, 5, and 7 forever. They're going to see that. And that's how I find peace. That's why at first, when I first started the Now movement, it was just survival. I had to do everything and anything to keep my mind off of what was going on inside of my mind. So, I mean, I was doing like 16-hour days to make the Now movement into a reality. It had a purpose. That part I knew. It had a purpose. And Church of Real Talk has always had a purpose to motivate and inspire people. But I don't think it got to where it needed to be until, this whole domestic narcissistic abuse thing became the topic or the subject that needed to be discussed in the hopes of helping other people heal, of helping other people find balance so people don't just keep on wandering through the fog. And that's what it feels like sometimes. It's like if you've ever been on a highway early in the morning by yourself and there's a heavy fog, you are petrified because you can't turn on your lights, and it's like you're like this watching because you don't want to. What there's a car right in front of you, you can't even see it. And that's what it feels like when you're in the midst of narcissistic abuse. That is the way it feels. It feels as if, you don't know what's around that corner. You don't know, and you're living your life on a wing and a prayer. It's kind of crazy. All right, so we're falling off. I want to thank you guys who actually joined me. This was awesome. Thank you. You allowed me to share. Um, Remember, peace is the key. Peace for yourself. If you have children, peace for your children. You know, that's the key. And you, out of all of this stuff, detaching without guilt, reclaiming your identity, grieving the illusion, rebuilding emotional safety. Out of all of that stuff, none of that really takes place until you confront that shadow inside of you. You're going to have to sit down and have talks with it. You're going to have to figure out where the hurt is stemming from. And I think that's going to help you get on your way. I think my email is up in my details. If you guys ever want to reach out, if you ever want to talk about something or you just need help, I'm meeting, from doing these podcasts, I'm meeting professionals. Maybe I can, shoot, I'm not a professional. I'm a professional. I want to see people get better person. But I don't have alphabet soup after my name. Um, so maybe I can, send people your way. I want to do more of these. It seems like the veteran thing and the tech for veterans and survivors and this thing, it can only be once a month. Um, but I think somebody just put me up on this thing where I can start getting funding, for what we do here at Church of Real Talk, um, and for the Now movement, more importantly. But I want to do this more. I wish that I could sit back and just, wake up, go live, and help pull somebody out the fog. But that's a whole different subject for a whole nother day. The purpose of this was to get you people to start healing and recognizing that, hey, listen, person never loved you. You got to start loving yourself at some stage, you know. And I don't know why I have the phone set up and I'm looking at the computers like kind of crazy. And I see myself doing it. It's crazy. Hey, listen, I'm going to end this now. Lots to do. Um, Make sure you tune in at 3 p.m. I break down the DSM-5 to give you guys clarity on, I mean, the blueprint, the official tissue on what narcissistic abuse is, domestic narcissistic abuse really is. You know, with that being said, Minister Robinson, Church of Real Talk, founder of the Now Movement, and the reason why I do everything that I do, love you guys. Appreciate you all.